Welcome, Mary. It's so lovely to have you back in India, I think after what, 2.5 years, and lovely to be hosting you today. Just a quick, context to, what we would like to kind of discuss today is to ensure that the counseling and, the mentoring that we are guiding students with, when they kind of hear it from the admissions itself, it just kind of, reiterates everything that we are saying.
Sure.
So a couple of questions that, are most popular are your common concerns with our families. First one is that how important is, the academic layer to your profile when you as admissions evaluate thousands of applicants and applications?
Yeah, so I would say that academics are probably the most primary thing that we are looking at when we are evaluating an application. We use what's called a holistic review process, but the academic preparation is critical because we want our students to successfully transition to our universities and then to go on and graduate from our institution. So all of us at highly selective institutions have a very high-powered student body. All of them are at the top of their classes. So we want students that will be comfortable in that environment. But I would say that, everything does have its merit within the application, but academics are pretty critical.
Okay, super. Thank you so much for that, because we always tell our students that your academics is your backbone.
Yes.
It is the biggest component, the component that carries the highest weightage,
Yes.
and everything else will supplement it. It won't substitute it.
Right.
So thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
Okay, my second question is that, yes, a very, very, commonly we see students wanting to pursue business, right? That's one of the most sought after majors also.
Yes.
But students also feel it's okay to pursue business or, go towards that track and not have math in their high school.
Okay.
And we keep emphasizing on the importance of math, whether you are in the 9th, 10th, 11th or 12th. So can you help us, students understand that why is math such an important component for anybody gearing towards business?
Sure. So math is a part of the classes that are going to be required by the business school that you're going to. I would say our students at Notre Dame, especially our finance students, they have to take calculus at Notre Dame. And so when you have a foundation that's going to prepare you for that, you're going to obviously do very well. We're also seeing an increase of students who want to do STEM designated majors within the business school.
Yes.
And you are going to have to do more math when you have the STEM designated fields. So I think the more preparation you can have, the more successful you're going to be.
Absolutely. And if you can just share some light on, the first 2 years also, before they even declare their major, they have to do their core curricula, right? And the core curricula would have a lot of, math related and calculated components.
Sure. So like at most universities, you're going to have a very well-rounded core curriculum. And so at Notre Dame, it's going to include math and science, but it's also going to include the liberal arts and humanities, as well as philosophy and theology. So I would say, students should come in prepared, but they should also be prepared for all of the subjects.
Okay, super. Thanks so much. So yes, for students keen on pursuing math, keen on pursuing business, there you had it. There is no way escaping math. My next question would be that, what would your advice be on crafting impactful essays?
Yes.
That's one component. I guess just not international students, but students across the globe, right? They do have, these myths or sort of ideas. There's got to be flowery language or dramatic. But what is your guidance on strong essays that will leave an impression with you?
Yeah, I would say authenticity is really the biggest indicator of interest in an institution, but also just of the quality of the student's application. When students have taken the time to craft something that it's really about them and really sharing something that we haven't already learned, that's the most meaningful essay that we could read. And it doesn't have to be something that is a huge life event, or it doesn't have to be painted with a lot of high vocabulary. It can be a very simple story that really shares a lot and helps us know the student that much better. Most admission reps are going to be reading the essays after they've looked at all the other components. And so those essays are sort of like the bow on the present. So you really just want it to be the most reflective of who you are and who you've already shown yourself to be throughout the rest of your application.
Lovely. And I love the way, Mary's just kind of highlighted a very important component is that the essays are probably read after, going through the entire application. So the essays do have to tie into the rest of, your profile.
Yes.
And that's something we keep saying, that ensure that it's all coming together like a beautiful piece of puzzle.
Yes.
And tells you something more about the same person. It's not too disconnected, right?
Right, and they don't have to reiterate anything that we probably already learned about previously in the application, but if there was an element of an experience that's tied into an activity, that's fine to share, but you don't have to feel like you have to resell the things that you've already shown us.
Correct. Perfect. So thank you so much for that, Mary. My next kind of question is that your advice on subject selection for high school students.
Okay.
Very, very honestly out here that students generally feel that yes, a higher percentage is more important and they can go easy on the rigor. So what, according to admission officers, is more important and what for you is rigor?
Yes, well, it's going to depend on the context of the high school in which the student is placed. So we're not going to compare a student from, let's say, DIS with a student from BIS with a student from ABWA. We're going to be looking at them within their own individual context. And what does a competitive student applying from those schools look like? And where does this student fall within that context? This is why admission reps have specific territory so that we have that really rich context from which to evaluate the student application.
Super. I think that's so helpful because we are always telling students that irrespective of whatever you may be, aiming for in the future, do not, think that you can let go of, the rigor subjects, which could be your lab sciences, your math, your core, social sciences, thinking that I want to do like probably history in the future. So let me, I'm okay with, finding my way around the easier subjects.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, super. Thanks so much for that. My next question would be that your advice on letters of recommendations and recommenders. Who would you kind of recommend students that they, are they okay to take a letter of recommendation from a 9th grader, 10th grader, faculty, or would you prefer the more recent ones? Some tips on that.
Yeah, so at Notre Dame, we would prefer that students would have a teacher in 11th or 12th grade in a core subject, so core being English, math, science, social science, or foreign language. And this should be someone that knows you both very well academically, but also very well personally. They have an idea of who you are within your school community. They've seen you in action in the classroom. They're aware if there have been any adversities that you've overcome. These are going to be the people that give us the richest amount of detail and really help us to feel like we can get a sense of you within the context of your school and your classroom.
And what is the importance of the letters of recommendation? How important do you consider them?
Yeah, so students are not just coming to download an education and leave. They are going to be active participants in the classroom, we hope. They're going to be wonderful members of our dorm community and our student community. And so we don't get that day-to-day context of you from just looking at your transcript. We also need to have that letter of recommendation helping us to understand what you've contributed in terms of your participation in the classroom, your general contributions in the school community, and what kind of peer you are among your classmates.
Awesome. And a couple of universities are changing their letter of recommendation strategy this cycle. I believe, Penn has kind of changed their strategy. So any changes that Notre Dame is introducing?
No, we want it to be as equitable as possible, so we keep it very straightforward. We only ask that you submit one from a teacher in a core subject in year 11 or 12. And then obviously some schools may have counseling, so an additional letter is, sometimes expected from some schools, but it is not required by Notre Dame because counseling situations are very different at different schools. But that's the only letter that we require.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks so much. And I think my last question would be something that I personally love, telling my students is that when you are thinking about that strategy on how to build your profile, where you want your story, students generally feel, let me do 20 things and let me fill it up and beef it up. And we are like, it's okay to do 2 things.
Right.
Do them in depth. It's depth over breadth that matters.
Yes.
Can you share some light on why is that sort of the angle, or why is it that you would want a student, building the strategy along those lines?
Sure. Well, it's not so much building a strategy as that it's genuine reflection of who you are. A university like Notre Dame is really looking for that authentic student that has really channeled their interests and developed their talents while sharing it with others. We really are really keen on having leaders who have really channeled themselves and have shared in their school or in their community. It looks very different for different kinds of students, and with the pandemic, obviously, that's been a bit more of a challenge, but the students that have either really contributed to their family, their community, they've helped their classmates navigate this new virtual world that everyone found themselves in, or maybe they found a way to still engage in their passions, but in new context. That resilience, all of that is really attractive to us.
Super. So one of our students has just graduated from Notre Dame right now,
Wonderful.
and one is just matriculating,
Yes.
starting freshman. So yes, looking forward to hearing a lot more about Notre Dame from them and their experiences on campus, and once they've kind of now in the real world.
Yes.
So, and looking forward to sharing a lot more about Notre Dame with our potential applicants.
Wonderful.